Alright, so hi everyone. So this is the first video that I filmed since campus was closed, and everybody should be watching this in their first week back to class, although campus is still closed. So I just want to say that I really hope that this video finds everybody healthy and well and, in a good environment and, as well as you can possibly be. I really hope that for all my students and just for everybody. As you can see, I had to move my office to home, and things are a little bit chaotic right now, but it could definitely be a lot worse. Alright, so let's talk about philosophy of the environment. So on Monday, we started to discuss our living environment, and we started with Peter Singer, who argued that there's no justification for treating animals in the same way that we do non-living resources. So Singer was especially concerned with drawing attention to the abuses involved in factory farming. But it may surprise you somewhat, but Singer, he's not against all human use of animals. His concern is that animals not suffer because suffering is bad and their suffering has to be taken into account. At the same time, although we have to give the suffering of animals equal consideration to that of humans, because suffering is suffering, they're not exactly the same as humans, and so that doesn't always equate into equal treatment. Most importantly, an animal's life is not valuable to it, Singer and others argue, in the same way that a person's is, because they're not aware of themselves as being alive in the same way that a person is. They don't have that same first-person perspective of themselves as a unified being that exists across time, and they don't have goals and things that they want to do with their life in the same way that a human does. So Singer concludes an animal has an interest in not suffering, but it doesn't really have an interest in staying alive. So this may sound like an odd conclusion, but it's often reflected in the way that people think and act. It's why shelters euthanize dogs and cats if no one adopts them. It's why hunters are concerned with finishing their kill quickly. And it's also why there's a demand for so-called humane meat as an alternative to factory farming. Now, there's some quotes in this paper that make it seem as if Singer's endorsing the consumption of humanely raised meat, and I think that those are being taken a little bit out of context. But Singer does state the use of animals for medical research is ethical in cases where it's absolutely necessary to save human lives. I know that's a topic that's really on everybody's mind right now, so that's something to think about. Remember that Singer's a utilitarian, so everything is like a big trolley problem for him. And hey, if you have 5 humans tied on one side of the track and you have 5 lab rats tied on the other side, he says, look, you're gonna run over the lab rats. You're not gonna run over the humans because the humans have an interest in staying alive. So we do what we have to do to these poor lab animals, but let's just get it done as quickly and as painlessly as possible. On the other hand, it could be argued that equal moral consideration, it means equal treatment, right, or equal ethical treatment, and that's a position that today's author, Gary Francione, supports. He argues that the only real difference between humans and animals is intelligence, and that's not a morally relevant difference. Animals can suffer, and what's more, their lives are as precious to them as ours are to us. Alright, so he argues that Singer is wrong when he says that animals don't really have an interest in staying alive. He says all living creatures do. Now, most people concerned with the treatment of animals, they want what Francione calls animal welfare. So this is a very wide-ranging group, but it includes everyone who wants animals to be as well treated as possible, but still sees them at some level as like a resource or a potential resource for humans, either for the purposes of humane farming or scientific research or for some other critical reason. So animal advocates want reform, animal welfare advocates, they want reform, possibly very deep reform, but still reforms rather than really fundamental changes to how we view animals. Francione represents what he calls animal liberation, which is a view that it's unethical to ever treat animals as a resource and that they should simply be entirely free from human exploitation. So these groups, the welfare and liberation movements, they can sometimes come into conflict over different goals, and I'll let you take a brief look at their arguments here. Now, I think most of us, when we're being honest, were disturbed by at least some aspect of the human treatment of animals. But the question is what way you want to go with reform, or how far you want to go with reform, and how you think it should be implemented. You should also think about what approach you think is the one that's likely to actually make a difference. Another question to ask is whether, once you admit that we should be concerned with the suffering of animals at all, whether there can be any justification for stopping that concern at a certain level and saying like, hey, it's okay to make them suffer up to this level or for this reason, but not past that. And what kind of justification do we have for setting some kind of level like that or cutoff point? And saying it's okay up to this point, but not okay after. And you may also find it to be an odd or even an incoherent position that we shouldn't cause animals to suffer, but that their lives are not important. So anyway, think about these issues, and we'll discuss them somehow on Friday. Obviously not in person, but we'll have a discussion board of some sort. So everyone take care, and we'll see you next week.